Welcome to Breakaway, the minor hockey podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Wilbur, founder of the Coaches Site. As always, I'm joined by the executive director of the Ontario Minor Hockey Association, Mr. Ian Taylor. Ian, how you doing?
I'm great, Aaron. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well. It feels like, it's been a while since we chatted.
Yeah.
Totally off topic.
Okay.
When is it appropriate to stop saying Happy New Year? Because I've been, as I've been writing emails to people, I'm like, do I still open with, hey Tom, first off, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Yada yada yada. I'm like, when does that expire?
It's a good question because I also have been doing that, especially with emails. It was across the board. I think for probably the first 2 weeks, and now I would probably say I'm not doing it on emails, but I just said it to you, so I'm probably doing it in greetings where I haven't seen. If I hadn't seen you since before New Year or Christmas, I would say that.
Well, I am going to propose not globally.
Yeah.
January 31st, you can Happy New Year it up until then. But once we turn the page on January, it's just, hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
And that way nobody has to feel uncomfortable or feel like has to question. It's like you can say it up until January 31st.
Yep.
And then we get on with it.
Yep. That's I'd say that's right in my wheelhouse for sure. So I'm all in on that.
I feel like we've already got a lot accomplished today. So you're welcome to all the listeners.
That's right.
But speaking of Happy New Year, how is the new year rolling out for you? I know we talked last time. This is sort of that second season or that second half, and that both from a team mindset, but also when it comes to our individual players and a development standpoint. This is kind of everything kind of doesn't start all over again, but it's kind of it's like you get back on the starting gate all over again.
Yeah. I you know what? I think it's interesting. I think we talked about this previously. I think previously where it was every hockey team, in Ontario and Canada had a Christmas hockey tournament, and it's not the case anymore, right? I think people do like a break. I think, and it was interesting. It was interesting here. I'm not sure what it was like in BC, but because of where Christmas fell on a weekend, school went right up to the weekend of Christmas. So then the Christmas
not here. That's interesting.
So the Christmas break was, holiday break was the 2 weeks after Christmas. So there was a full 2 weeks after Christmas here. So that's not the norm. It just happens to be because Christmas was on a Sunday, right? And so I found that it was kind of a rush up to Christmas, but I've talked to a lot of people who said, we liked the back end of it, I guess, having that time. And so I think that fits right in with people who are looking for perhaps a little time off or a change of pace. And now they'll come back, ramp right up into hockey. As you said, second season, we still have runway left. We're not right into play down. So that's good. Interestingly, there's a tournament here where I live, and that was always over Christmas. And initially it was like it was like I can't remember if it was a minor or a major tournament, age group.
Yeah.
And we would be, so every other year we would be in our own tournament, and then usually we'd be in another tournament anyway. So they moved that tournament from Christmas, and they're actually holding it this coming weekend. So
got it.
So again, so still able to run a tournament, so still able to have, that tournament experience and some additional, competition, that sort of stuff. But again, take it away from Christmas, so open up some time for people. And they couldn't run it before because, like I say, we were preparing for play downs. So I just think it's an all around, benefit, but it's really interesting how these subtle changes are coming about. And I think people are telling us, more and more, Aaron, we've had this conversation, and I'm going off
No,
topic
this
a little
is great.
bit, but we've been talking more and more about, the two things people have is they have a certain amount of time and they have a certain amount of money, and how they're going to spend that, is as a family, or, is up to them. Right. And they can spread it out. They can put it all into hockey. We've talked about, do you specialize, or do you, so I think more and more we're hearing people say, yeah, um, this is how we want to use our time, or this is how we're going to use our money. So I think we've just got to, more than ever, have our ears open and our eyes open, and take in that feedback, because it's different. It's different from when you played. It's even different from when my boys were coming through minor hockey. It's certainly different from when I played, and I'm being just a little bit older than you.
Just a little bit.
That's right.
It's funny. So we had this conversation as a staff. So we kind of took that break off. A little bit different here. Kids had the week prior to Christmas off, and then they went back to school on January 2nd. But so we all, as a staff, reconnect on the 2nd, and we ask how everybody's time off was. And so a couple of our staff, they coach. Mm-hmm. And some of them mentioned like, oh, we were in holiday tournaments. And I just found it interesting because we had just talked about it with on our show with Ray. And I said, hey, like, how was it? And they're like, oh, like, it was great, holiday tournament, yada, yada, yada. And I said, it's funny, we were talking about it and talking about like how like a lot of people don't want the holiday tournament now that like I'm a minor hockey player. Like I want that time off at Christmas. And he's like, why? It's awesome. And so I started having more conversations with coaches. But do you know what the difference was in opinion? Do you know what, like, there was, if you sort of drew a line or like peeled back a few layers, if you don't have kids and you're not married, a holiday tournament's awesome.
Yeah.
But if you have a family and you have a lot going on, a holiday tournament is the biggest pain in the rear, because you're trying to juggle the busiest time of year and you're just adding one more big thing in the middle of it. And I thought that was really telling. And, it's funny. We have my little guy, he's in U6.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of the parents, and I'm now the head coach of the Squamish U6 program, which is a lot of fun. But so our team manager comes up to me and says, hey, we've there's a jamboree in Hope. Mm-hmm. And we some of the parents would like to go to this. What do you think? And I said, like, they're saying, no, like and just in context, like this is a 2-hour drive. So you got to get in a hotel. It's a 1-day thing. And I'm like, no, like, we're fine. Let's just get more ice and, we'll play each other. The kids don't care. Like, and it's Hope too. Like, no. And if anybody here is listening from Hope, Hope's a great spot. It's where they filmed Rambo 1. But it's not like I wouldn't call it the sexiest destination. And I'm like, but it's the same thing. We're like, oh man, like if we had to take that weekend off, there's so much we could do. We could, go skiing or whatever. Like, and you just realize, like, I think for coaches out there, as we put together, our seasonal plans and events, it is like when you've got a career, family, kids, especially those with multiple kids, like a tournament is a huge commitment, and they're fun. But they're fun when it can be, and this is the hardest word in the English language to say, at least for me, compartmentalized. When it can just be like a thing that you go to and enjoy, it's great. But when it's bunched in with a whole bunch of other stuff, I'm not sure it's cruisy for everybody involved.
Well, and don't get me wrong, there's still appetite for tournaments, and there are still, sure, as you say, holiday tournaments. Like, so they still exist. All I'm saying is I just find it interesting that there is a bit of a shift, that there's not as many, or like I say, because of how we've changed our seasonal structure, our seasonal calendar, it's opened up other opportunities when we could slide some of those tournaments in. So they're still desired, right? You still want the experience. And that's, that's the part we don't want to take away. We know it's fun. We know it's great to go away. We know it's great to play other teams, all that stuff. So it's just like, it's interesting how, a subtle little difference or a tweak can really, make a change that I think, a subtle change could make a change that's positive or negative. But in this side, I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, well, just to put a bow, this is my last. Now it's mine. Now I'm climbing up on the soapbox. So you know how this is an idea I had. If anybody steals it, that's awesome because this, in my opinion, this should exist in the world. I think that there should be like a little sort of like the version of Glassdoor, which is like a platform where you can rate employers. I think there should be like a little website where you can rate youth sports tournaments because it is a lot of money. It's a big time commitment. And you go to some tournaments, it's like you show up and they've got like a little piece of cardboard in the lobby and it's got like the standings and all that. And you know, you just go there and you play your games and you take off. But then you go to other tournaments and it's like the association, like it's cool. Like you feel like you're a part of something. It's a big event. There's not fireworks, like it's all, you know, manageable stuff, but it's just, there's some pageantry involved in it. And it feels like the tournament's a bit of a destination. You feel proud that you go home, hey, we took part in this thing and it was great. That's what every tournament, in my opinion, if you're inviting teams from outside your district, if people paying money for hotels, there should be an effort to make the tournament kind of a fun experience. There should be stuff for the parents to do. And like, I can just recall as a kid and then as a coach, some of those events where you go to, and it's a really cool experience. And all of a sudden, it's not just if you won or lost, you're just glad that you got to participate in it.
Yeah.
So there should be a rating system for tournaments. So people, especially those traveling, can say, hey, like we had a really good experience here, and this is worth, you know, if you're going to pick one or two in the year, this is one worth signing up for.
So that
stepping off the soapbox now.
No, but you know what, you're bang on because, you know, that's kind of how we've transitioned our championships to be, you know, tournament based. And again, you know, we have pushed back about this, you know, we need series and best of and all that sort of stuff. But so the idea is to provide an experience and again, you know, great competition, but again, a little more of that overall event type experience. And so, you know, think about, you know, over Christmas, right? There certainly was the World Juniors was on, so that takes center stage. But, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, Aaron, like I love watching the Spengler Cup. I love it. Like, so I get up, you know, I'm up at 8 o'clock.
It was a tough goal this year. Ooh.
Yeah, no, it was, but you know,
it's amazing. It's amazing
tournament, right? It's a tournament.
Yeah.
In a cathedral of hockey, right? Like it's pretty cool, right? So, I'm bang on with you. I'm bang on.
I like the Spengler Cup. Like I do like that short term where it's not single elimination, but it's like you can't really trip. You gotta kind of get some momentum and get rolling. And I'll just say this, like for anybody, like obviously this is a OMHA centered podcast, but like I can recall coming out to some of your events, like even just your AGM where you have like the Parade of Champions. Like I think you guys do an unbelievable job where I'm sure that it resonates with the players when they're like adults and they have their own kids, where they're like, you know, they probably go in and pull out their medals and their hats and all that. And they're like, hey, I got to do this. Like, I think you guys do a great job with the celebration part, which is great. We should all celebrate that because for a lot of these kids, like this is the peak of where they're at. And I sort of equate it to like, we work closely with Minnesota hockey. If you talk to an adult who is in their 40s or 50s or older, our age, and they had an opportunity as a youth player to play in the state tournament, the high school championships.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you ask them what the highlights of their life are, they will say getting married, having my first child, or having all my kids, and playing in the state championship. Like I guarantee it is such a big deal out there. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like they never played college hockey, they never played that, but they just, that sticks with them. And, you know, at the end of the day, it really kind of reframes what we're all doing here is at the end of the day, we're creating memories. We're trying to create lasting memories for young people that they're going to hold on to for the rest of their life.
It's the, I refer to it as, because there's two sides to this, the good side of Friday Night Lights, right? You know, you're familiar, right? So that's, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So, I mean, the book, the movie, and the TV show, I mean, pick one. They're all great, right? So
they are.
So, yeah, but the good side, the good stuff.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. Well, speaking of good stuff,
Yeah.
we have a great guest today. We're going to be joined by Matt Dumochelle. So
Yeah.
the backstory on Matt lives in the Windsor area. He is an assistant GM with the Leamington Flyers.
Right.
But a couple of years ago, Matt just reached out to me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast. This is the Glass Now podcast that we do at the coaches site." And he said, "How about I interview you about the story of the coaches site?" And I was like, "Huh, that's kind of different." And I ran it by our staff and they're like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. You should do that." And I said, "Do you have like any experience with this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, like I used to work in radio." So we do the show. I thought he did a good job. And we were just chatting after and he's like, I said, "Hey, like, at this time we were kind of, looking for people that wanted to create content or get involved." And
Right.
I said, "Man, do you have any experience writing?" And he's like, "Yeah, a little bit." And I said, "You know what? I've had this idea for a while that it would be really cool. We've got these connections all over the world with these hockey organizations, and it's pretty clear that some programs do a remarkable job at player development, and frankly, a lot better than many of their peers. And it would be really interesting to see what makes them tick. In particular, if you could focus on different parts of the world, like so each from a different country." And he's like, "Yeah, I could do that." And I said, "Let's do it." And so we did it. And we're in season 2 now. But season 1 was an overwhelming success. And I think just we've had so much feedback on it because this isn't focused on, as much as it's focused on clubs that, have a pretty distinguished alumni list of NHL players. That's not their focus. Like their focus is, especially the European clubs, it's bringing kids up. They're just focused on doing it the right way and making sure every player has the best possible experience, creating memories and all of that. And it's really, really unique. And I just thought it was a great opportunity. And I know you've checked out all of Matt's pieces and have been a fan. Yep. And I thought it was a great idea to like get him on here and really dig into what makes some of these organizations tick, because I think there's so much we can all borrow from what they're doing and implement them in our own programs. And it's all accessible stuff. Like there's no smoke or mirrors. Like this is all accessible stuff.
Aaron, and yeah, I mean, we have a great relationship. The OMHA, you and I, but the OMHA and the coaches site, we love, again, like the content, the summer conference, the skill developers series, and I always get the names wrong, but
I do too. To be honest, it's a lot of acronyms. It's a lot of acronyms in the course of the year,
and I love it all, and you know that. But yeah, but this was the one that I probably reached out to you. I saw it, and I don't know if I flipped you a text or a note, whatever. Yeah. And it was it was the Jokerit. It was the one on Jokerit, and I was just like, this. We have to like this is the thing I would say I've enjoyed the most, because it just speaks to that pathway. It speaks to creating a system of player development integrated throughout. And it's something that like you say, we have different models, and this is what I want. This is what I want to. One of the things I want to talk about today is really like what can we steal, like and what are the best practices 100%. we can replicate, right? Like that's entirely where my head was at now, and from the first moment I read that. But so for all the great stuff you guys do, I can say that one, boy, that was like a bullet for me. Like it was just like because this lands right where we live. You know what I mean? It translates to minor hockey, even though, like you say, there's a pathway to senior teams and pro players and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so I'm this one we've been talking about doing for a long time, so I'm jacked.
Yeah, no, me too. And I appreciate this. I mean, this is without question. I mean, I have like literally nothing to do with it, but it's the thing I'm most proud of that we've ever done. And I think it has the potential, and the impact it's had to date has been overwhelming, because the biggest piece of feedback we've gotten from, our membership at the grassroots level has been, it's given people permission to not feel like more is more. Like they don't feel like they've got to try and keep up with, right. Let's be honest, some of the crazy stuff that goes, they're like, because all these organizations, and these are like, frankly, these are like the Ferraris of hockey development organizations. They're all rooted in like they got to make it fun because they understand that if the kids are having fun and they build relationships with them, they're going to work harder. They're not going to work harder because they just scream and yell at them and tell them to work harder. They're concerned about creating lifelong fans, not only of the game, but with that affiliation with their club and their organization, that it means something. They understand that they've got to keep as many kids in the pool as possible for as long as possible because kids develop at different rates and you can't separate them when they're 7 and 8 years old. And again, this is all actionable stuff that anybody can do. But so much of the feedback was that, we had hockey people that were like, I knew this was the right way, but it's so easy to get pulled in the wrong direction.
Sure.
And this sort of gave me the permission to say, no, we're digging our heels in and we're doing it this way because in the long term, we know this is going to be what's best for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes this just one, an awesome topic, but an awesome guest with Matt coming on too.
Awesome. Well, listen, I hope everybody enjoys this. I know, as we said, Ian and I have been really looking forward to connecting with Matt Dumochelle, author of Hockey Factories, and we'll be right back with Matt after the break. The Coaches Site is a proud partner of the OMHA along with many of the top development organizations in the world. The Coaches Site was created to provide hockey's top coaches, leaders, and performance experts with a platform to share their experience and insights with amateur coaches and minor hockey organizations with the goal of enhancing the development opportunity for all players. A membership includes access to 500 hours of educational videos, a library of over 700 drills, articles breaking down the latest tactics and systems, and our newly released Initiation Skills Series, which provides a video-based development curriculum for the first 3 years of a player's minor hockey career. Regardless of the level you coach, the Coaches Site is going to provide you the ultimate coaching toolkit. Listeners of the Breakaway podcast can save 25% off an annual membership by using the code OMHA when they register. Again, use the code OMHA and get registered today. Matt, how you doing?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Matt, now that the Series 1 of Hockey Factories is out, you're on to Series 2. What excites you about the conversations that you get to have that maybe you didn't anticipate when you first started this, we'll call it a journey?
Yeah, I think the one thing that's stood out right from the start is just the openness of everyone that I've talked to. I mean, these organizations are willing to set up interviews and conversations with pretty much anybody you ask to connect with, and all of them are very open with sharing all the information that they have. I think that kind of comes across, or I hope it comes across in the articles and in the podcast. And these guys want the information that they have out there so that everyone else can use it, everyone can share it, everyone can build the game and put the game in a better place, which you don't necessarily see in some centers or even countries realistically. So it definitely opened my eyes to that and to have those opportunities to talk to those guys. Like I said, I talked to Jari Curry, I've talked to Peter Forsberg, and I couldn't tell you, Aaron, how many who am I moments as I'm sitting here waiting to connect with first round NHL draft picks and a Roger Romberg type in Frölunda, and all of a sudden I get to have these conversations. Each one of them kind of takes on a life of its own, I think, with the articles, but they're all really centered around the same ideas, and those ideas are really up for grabs, that anybody is worth or anybody considers worth putting the effort into to learn.
So Aaron, just before you go on there, I just want to, yeah. I mean, just as a concept, Matt, to your point, here in Ontario, certainly it doesn't apply to all coaches, but certainly there are coaches who they want to keep everything to themselves. There's no sharing. They're almost little silos unto themselves. Certainly the skill developer people out there, they don't want you copying any of their drills or anything. So just as a starting point for you to bring that up, I think that's just a great, launching pad for everything else, that we're gonna talk about. But just that in itself, just mindset of being, open, sharing, and I just think that whole mindset is just something we've got to embrace more. And again, like realistically, you can go on the internet and find a drill or whatever. You can do all that, but it's the understanding or the talking about, hey, this worked for me, this didn't work for us, or this is our focus at this age group, or whatever the case may be. It just strikes me as a great starting point of just the openness. I love it, and I think we can encourage all of our coaches and associations to operate a little more like that. I think we would all benefit, because the truth is, there's an incredible network of people out there that are doing this, that are involved in minor hockey, that we could all that could benefit from each other. So I'm sorry, I am on the soapbox, Aaron, but I just
this is the soapbox episode, but it's great. Well, it's all good.
I'm guessing it is going to be, because we haven't even got into the stuff yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, just as a starting point, man, seriously, it just resonates with me. It really does.
Well, I had on my notes here to finish this, but I'll say it now. Like my hope with this episode, and I don't know if you can relate to this, Ian. So I think I've shared before, I used to be the hockey director of the North Shore Winter Club. So we were part of what was the PCHA. So that's like in the Vancouver area. It's kind of our version of the OMHA, and you got to go to your monthly meetings. We go to the meetings, and we all have votes on, like, what we should pay the linesmen at a U10 game. And we talk about, like, when you take the stop signs off, like all this peripheral stuff. And I always felt then, but now after, reading Hockey Factories, my feeling is, like, I hope what comes out of this is that a bunch of associations in the OMHA and whoever else is listening, somebody sends out an email and says, hey, everybody, how about once a month we get on a Zoom call, or we go meet for coffee at the local Tim Hortons, and there's no agenda. We're just going to say, like, what are you doing that's working? What are the pain points? Maybe somebody's got a solution, and we should all be sharing, ideas that exist in our own backyard within our own network. And we should all be motivated, even if, it's our big rival association down the road. We should all be motivated to help each other create the best experience possible for the kids. And as Matt said, I mean, we see it with the coaches we work with at the coaches site. The best coaches in the world, open book. They'll share anything. Ask them anything, they'll share it. And it's really clear. The best organizations in the world, they'll share anything, because you know what? They're already focused on what's next and getting better. So they're not worried about it.
Right.
So,
for sure. Further to your point there, Ian, when you're talking about how everybody shares and where it comes from, speaking with these clubs, I mean, none of them are necessarily reinventing the wheel. Like, this isn't, they haven't created a brand new way of playing hockey. It's just a different system. It might be a different look. It might be different ways of communicating the message or the system that they're trying to get. So, that's when you talk about the privacy and the keeping it. Like, I don't think there's anybody out there that's actually reinvented this game or changed the way this game gets played. It's it's not private information. It's public. And to Aaron's point as well, I mean, when you talk about all the different clubs and having those opportunities to talk and bounce ideas off of each other and see what works and see what doesn't, they're okay with doing that, because further to what Aaron was saying, they're going to still find a way to do it better than you. And that's the mindset that Jokerit and that Frölunda and some of these clubs have, is they have no problem sharing the knowledge that they know, but they are going to, the couple of lines from the different articles, we're going to be number one at everything that's free. We're not we won't finish number two in anything. If we find somebody doing something better than them, or better than us, we're going to find a way to do it better than them. So it's not we're all just, I hope everybody has fun and, I want both teams to win and that kind of mindset when we talk about development. And I know we'll talk about winning, I'm sure, at some point in this conversation too. But, that mindset is openness and willing to share, but also we're still going to find a way to do it better than you, because we're Frölunda, we're Jokerit, the competition is incredible.
Right.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's interesting, to that point. Uh, I'm not sure. I don't believe he was featured in the Frölunda article, but Tobias Johansson, who was the director of player development for a number of years, I think about 9 years.
Right.
He's
He
now
was
the
in
head.
there. I heard that latest Glass and Out podcast and said, oh man, I wish I had gotten my hands on this guy.
Well, and he tells a story. So we had him on Glass and Out, and he tells the story that when he was at Frölunda, and I think this is really important for organizations or minor hockey organizations. So they had a their goal was it wasn't about wins and losses. It was all on player development. Like that's all they cared about. The one thing he said, I said, did you have anything like that was kind of competitive? He's like, yeah. He's like, we wanted, I hope I get this right. They wanted 3 players drafted every year. Think about that. They wanted 3 players from their organization, which it's not like they had tens of thousands of kids. Like this was a small organization drafted every year. So it was in 2018, I believe. The draft was in Dallas. And the first pick is Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah.
Goes to Buffalo. Sure. I'm pretty sure it was 2018. And so they got the first pick. They got the first pick in the draft. So the draft obviously works. Friday night's the first round. Saturday is the rest of the draft. So he said, we've got a bunch of staff. We're excited. We got the first pick. We go and have some fun in Dallas on the Saturday. And we wake up on Sunday morning, and there's an email to every coach in the association. And it says, and I believe it was from Roger Ronberg. And it's like, hey, everybody. For those that are in Dallas, hope you had a good time last night. FYI, safe travels home, but we're going to have a meeting on Tuesday morning because we failed. We only had 1 player drafted, and we're going to do an audit of our whole development system because this isn't happening because if we don't fix it now, it'll be too late if this keeps happening. So we got to fix it. And we're open the book right down to like the beginners. And it stuck with me that at the end of the day, it's like when your kid goes to school, the most important thing is the curriculum, what they're learning. And that's one thing these organizations have all figured out. It's like you can have the best jerseys, you can have like cool water bottles, you can run the best trails. But at the end of the day, do you know the curriculum and the educational experience in hockey that you're delivering your players? Because that's what matters most. That's, at least in my opinion, that's what should matter most if you're a grassroots organization. That wasn't a question. That was my soapbox moment there. But
that's awesome.
I think here is a question though, Matt. Yep. Alignment. How important was alignment within these organizations and their success?
Continuity is one of the biggest things that we talked about with a few of these clubs in the coaches that have been there 7 to 10 years, coaching the same age groups, getting used to that kind of environment and that kind of the communication and such. But Aaron, that's number one. I mean, if the messaging is coming from 2 different voices within the same age group, even in one age group to the next age group, and there's some confusion there, it can take for some of these clubs another half season to get the verbiage right, to get the placement right, to get the systems right. And so alignment from the top down, and that's why these clubs consider themselves, the coaches staff, as a community of coaches. The organizations that I spoke with for the most part that are full development ones, so mostly the ones that were in Europe, Shattuck, St. Mary's, and Okanagan Hockey Academy kind of get the high school and onward, right? But some of the clubs in Europe are starting their skating schools at 4 or 5 years old. So the message that's said at U9 is the same at U18 because those coaches are in the same room. And they're discussing that philosophy. And that philosophy doesn't belong to so-and-so coaching U13. That belongs to Young Alder Mannheim. That belongs to Zug. That's their system. These coaches teach their system. So there's creativity to it. There's openness to playing a little bit. And that's the fun of coaching, is the creativity and getting to change things around with the different types of players that you have. But the alignment, like you said, Aaron, of the idea of end of the day, this is what we want to produce. This is where we start. This is what your age group contributes to that piece of the puzzle is the one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing that those clubs have going for them.
So Matt, I want to jump on that last part, because I want people to be really clear when we say, there's a consistent philosophy throughout the organization. We want to develop players who are capable of playing, on the senior team, or as many players as possible, homegrown players. And we have this philosophy, we have this defined style of play, that sort of thing. That doesn't mean the 9-year-olds are getting taught the, Frölunda power play. It right. So it's principles and concepts, but understanding, like, because I think that's the mindset of, this is what the Leafs were doing in their power play last night. Well, who cares? Like, we have to focus on making a 10-foot pass consistently at 9, right? Or having skating skills that are going to allow you to these are building blocks, right? So I think so I think it's really important for coaches and organizations, and it might even be more organizations that we're speaking to on this point, is to understand, and you can go really macro, these are our beliefs, these are our values. But then when we get into our style of play, but to achieve this style of play throughout our organization, the age groups have specific metrics, or
yes.
Aaron, we talked about a checklist, a curriculum like school, that we want to, that are age appropriate, right? Because that's where I think, when we start talking about this, which I think is brilliant, but then, again, people can slant and go, okay, well, we got to start doing what the pro team's doing. And that's not the message there. The message is to develop that continuity, so it builds right towards that. And I think, and I think that's crucial, because when you talk about the skating school at Jokerit, and you've got these professional coaches, and they say, we want the kid to come back tomorrow. Like, that's paramount, because Aaron, as you said, we got to develop this as big a pool of players as possible.
Yeah.
To do that, they got to enjoy it. If they enjoy it, they'll come back, and then we can build. So it's again, that's almost more statement than question. But Matt, you understand what I'm saying there? And how do they connect that part? How do they connect it so there's continuity, but there's, like I say, kind of that age appropriate, and it builds. Communication, I gotta believe, is the most important part, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's the backbone of everything, and you're 100% right in the way that you explain that. And we'll use Jokerit as an example, and I know this is one of the takeaways that Aaron's mentioned before from the Jokerit article, is they sometimes don't even mind if you don't show up the one day, because the kid doesn't necessarily want to play because he's just not feeling well, or he didn't sleep well, or whatever it is, right? They're trying to create such a positive environment around hockey, because, like you said, Jung Alder Mannheim is an example of this. In Germany, hockey is not number one. There are about as many arenas in the entire country as there are in Toronto, in the GTA, for comparison's sake. And there's 83 million people in Germany. I mean, they play soccer, they play handball, they play everything else. So you have to get them started when they're young. And at that point, you're just getting them started to just enjoy blade on ice. They're playing games like cops and robbers, or tag, or things like that. My little guy's 5 years old. He's in his first year of hockey, and I'm out there on the ice with him sometimes. And I'm of the 5-year-olds, probably the worst skater of the 5-year-olds myself. But we play tag this past weekend. We just played tag with a soccer ball. So the kid that's it throws the soccer ball. If it hits somebody, then they're it. And
I believe that's called dodgeball.
It's tag when they can't really throw it very well.
Okay, got it. Okay.
When there's a target on the back, yeah.
Dive dodge.
But you're amazed by how much they pick up just from doing something that's not necessarily hockey related, but you can bring it back to them afterwards.
Yeah.
So when you're at U7, when you're at U9, when you're at U13, you start adding some structure in. But the one thing that, compared to what we have in Canada and North America, they do have, give them the benefit of the doubt of the development, they do have a bigger, or I guess a longer duration with them, or they're looking a little bit further down the road than we do. So they're looking for the NHL draft. Of course, they want to get as many players as they can to the best level in the world. But for a lot of these clubs, the mandate is 50% of their first team is from their junior programs or from their development programs. So they may not be worried about finished product, quote unquote, at 17, 18 years old. It might be 23. They may be, there may be some times where that U20 player is not ready for the pro team, has to go play somewhere else and then come back to make the first team. So they do have a little bit longer window there, but 100%, they'll start with playing offense with the puck. And that will be the focus for the season for the most part. That's what they coach around. That's what the feedback is after they play games or after practices. The next year is playing offense without the puck, spacing, finding room for making yourself open, creating opportunities, any sort of switches or picks or anything like that they're kind of teaching at that point. You get to defense, guarding the player that has the puck, guarding the player that doesn't have the puck. And they slowly increment or introduce these incrementally, I should say, because overload could very easily kick in with a 7, 9, 10-year-old. Sure. And they can lose interest at the same time, because if they're just sitting there watching video of how Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner flip pucks around the ice, they go out there and they're terrible. It's comparable. And one of the conversations I'd had with one of the guys from Frölunda was the same thing. Like, I'm a terrible, terrible golfer. So if I watch golf and I'm watching Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods in his prime, and I go out and golf, I mean, it looked so easy for them, and I'm on the beach or I'm in the pond or whatever, and the frustration sets in. So you have to be careful with video, and they are careful with video of introducing that, like you said, too soon, because a Toronto Maple Leafs power play is not in any way, shape, or form comparable to anybody's U15 power play. So seeing what they can do with that is great, but can that translate to what you can do within a game on the weekend? No, then scrap it and worry about it later on.
Yes. But to accomplish that, Matt, and I think my favorite part, and I was telling Ian before you came on, like, this is the thing I'm most proud of at the coaches site. I have nothing to do with it. It's, it's all you and your work and bringing it to life. But I love that this series shines a spotlight on a lot of people, coaches, managers within these organizations that probably otherwise maybe don't get a spotlight shined on them. But the work they do, and what has really struck me is, I'm going to say it's the craftsmanship. Like, their ego isn't like, I coach a group of 9-year-olds, so I'm going to show everybody how smart I am, and I'm going to try and teach them the Toronto Maple Leafs power play because I'm a great coach. It's like, no, like, I am, my ego's not involved, and I'm good with just teaching them offense without the puck. Like, I'm good with just doing my part. I'm a spoke in the wheel. I'm part of this factory, and I just want to do my part the best that I can do it. And I'm going to pass them on to the next coach and the next person, and they can do their part. And if we all have that mentality, by the time these kids get to 17, 18, they're going to be the best versions of themselves. Whether or not they get on the top team, they're going to be the best versions of themselves. Yep. And maybe is there my question would be, like, any people that stood out to you, through all these conversations you had, that you could maybe showcase as an example of some of these people?
Yeah, getting into the skills guys and that kind of player development. I mean, the one that we most recently did in Zug was Corson Carmichael. He was fantastic, and again, for nothing more than, he will oversee the development of the junior players and the coaches. So he's out on the ice with them sometimes. Sometimes he's just watching practice, taking feedback and doing with it what he can, and then going back to coach the coaches or coach the players on the system afterwards. And Mikael Ström in Frölunda, Thomas Taskinen in Jokerit, Timo Pusa at Jokerit as well. I mean, the names could go on, and they're not household names. And to your point, Aaron, these guys are so proud of the jobs that they do. Zug in Switzerland was our most recent one, and that one was really eye-opening in a sense of, they had not that long ago had an opening for the head coaching job for the first team. And they ended up getting Dan Tanges, who was from Norway or has Norway roots in his hockey history. And so, of course, you look internally and you see what kind of coaches that you have and some of that. And there was, from what I understand, maybe one or two people that had mentioned interest in moving to that first team, not because they didn't like the job, because they loved the job that they had where they were.
Really?
The coach that coaches U13 is so proud to move all of his kids to the next level. The way that these coaches get evaluated, it's not how many banners we end up getting on the wall. It's, you had 20 kids on your team this year. How many kids are playing next year? How many of those same kids, or do we have to go find kids from other clubs and pull those in and sort of restart that development model from them? There's a great sense of pride in the jobs that these guys do, because again, they're competitive and want to be the absolute best at what they do. And if what they do is they develop the best U10 or U12, U13 players and get them moving down the pipeline, where 5 to 10 years later it might be an impactful player. It's the patience of these clubs and these coaches and these philosophies is mind-boggling compared to, and Ian, you would see this more than anybody, what we see in Ontario or Canada or North America in general.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So from the moment I started reading the series, I'm thinking, okay, what can we steal here, right? Like the whole R&D, rip off and do philosophy, right? So when we talk about those coaches, like often we talk about, our best coaches are at the older age groups and the highest levels. Whereas when I read the Hockey Factory's articles, you had that person, you had a seasoned person who was working with the 9 and under group, and it was, so I just think of that, of that. It's just, different, but again, it's just tweaking the mindset a bit to have, not necessarily have the newest coaches with the newest youngest players, right? It's can we, could we, and to your point, we still want to develop coaches. So maybe, we need a person who's more of a mentor or over a champion of certain age groups who can, help those coaches, bring them along, but provide that leadership and knowledge and experience. And then, Matt, quite honestly, like, this takes me into parent expectations, right? So that's, I think that's where we have a lot of challenges, is parents have high expectations, especially at the younger age groups. And so there's the hockey side for coaches. And then there's obviously the dealing with the parent group and that sort of thing. And I just think, boy, that experience could be really useful, working with those younger coaches, whether it was programming based or whether it was just support based. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jokerit has a coach, Mikko Nurminen, who is really the junior coach, but he is the guy, he will start coaching the U9 team with, most of the time it's parent coaches or volunteers or somebody like that. He'll stay with them until January, most of the time turn of the year, and then kind of hand the keys over to them to lead that team. Those coaches will normally stay with them until U13, and then afterwards they've got full-time coaches. So they're with them for 4 years, and in that time, you've, along with developing these players, developed 3, maybe 4 coaches for 4 years of coaching around all of these different coaches. They're, like I said, they're in the meetings, they're part of that conversation. So afterwards, those 4 kids or those players move on. I mean, you have 2 or 3 coaches left over that they're still interested. Maybe they start from the beginning and start that kind of graduation process again. Maybe their opportunity is a little bit higher as an assistant coach or something like that too. The one thing that we focus and maybe I'm missing with the articles in general is that this is as much about developing coaches as it is players. Because the coaches are really, and you kind of get when you really get down to it, the coaches are what makes this work. You can have a brilliant philosophy. You can have, like we said earlier, reinvent the game of hockey. If the people that you have around you, or the people that are front and center communicating that message to the players, or like you said, dealing with the parents, or any of those other integral things, doing the X's and O's, aren't the right people, or don't get the message, or believe something differently, it's never going to work. And it's plain and simple. The agendas go out the door, and this is what I teach, and this is what I work. And I'll tell you this, with the parent side of things too, that was interesting. It didn't come up too much in these conversations, but they do kind of veer off as they go. The thing that saves some of these coaches realistically is they're not coming up with these schemes. This isn't their scheme. Right. This isn't how they teach this. They're coaching Jungalder Mannheim's program. They're coaching Frölunda's system. So a parent comes to them and say, hey, my kid's not playing very much. My kid doesn't get power play time. This kid's not as good as my kid. The coaches have, for lack of a better term, a built-in out. Say, listen, this isn't my design. If you have a problem with the design of the way that we're building this team, here's this guy's number and this guy's number and this guy's number all the way at the top of the ladder. I'm just teaching our club's philosophy. And it saves them that extra thing that I know is the eye roll of most youth coaches is, the parents and the phone calls and why is this kid, the second guessing and questioning and stuff, because it's the club philosophy and not just necessarily the U15 coach's philosophy, right?
Yeah, I think that like that support and backup, one, I especially for a newer coach and a younger coach, I think that would be crucial. And at the end of the day, to your point of developing coaches, what we recognize, and Aaron and I have had this conversation around, hockey's changing, sports changing, participation numbers are changing. There's tons of options out there. The reality is, we know that the single biggest influence on a kid's experience is their coach, right?
Yeah.
So so as much as we can support and develop our coaches, to your point, we're gonna support and develop more players. Hopefully, anyway, right?
For sure. And those coaches is, the right coach gets the pleasure of being able to send those players on to the next level, knowing that they did the best job they could to help them develop and get ready for the next group. Mike Needham, who was at the Okanagan Hockey Academy, was one of my favorite interviews. And he's the interview we do is almost in a classroom, and it's got the Bristol board on the back, and there's notes and tags all over the place. And all he was talking about, and the parts that he was getting most excited talking about, was he just got a letter not that long ago from a former player with pictures of their newborn child. Invitations to one of their players' weddings, things like that hadn't been. This isn't just a U18 kid that's getting married. These players are long into their adulthood. Some of them past their playing days. They're engineers or teachers or whatever they are, and they're just playing the beer leagues like everybody else. But they're still going back to Mike as the player director at the club and inviting them to his wedding or her wedding because of the impact that he had. It's amazing.
So don't we change, like to me, when I hear that, and you mentioned we're going to talk about winning at some point, or maybe we won't. But maybe we'll talk about, how do they define success? Because what you just said there, a young person, becoming, a professional, they're going to be the coaches of tomorrow. That sounds pretty successful to me. So how do these organizations define success, even though they have goals, as you guys both mentioned, about having so many draft picks, for example? We're talking a lot now. Again, this is the changing mindset that success is. So if the player comes back next year, there's one degree of success. Aaron, we had Ray on our last podcast, and he was talking about, his plan would be, when your player leaves our program, at the end of the year, they'll be better than when they started at the beginning of the year. Well, there's another way of defining success, right? So how do these organizations, define that?
Yeah, and I think you hit on a couple of the key points there, Ian, for sure. Especially at the beginning, it really does count on when these, how many of these kids are coming back. If they come back, if you got a group of, like I said, 20 and 20 come back next year, that's a successful year for some of those younger groups. It's also, you do get into the competitive portion of things, but with these clubs, It does move a lot further down the line than it would for us. When does winning matter and banners matter for some of these clubs? I'd suggest the majority of them it's U17 maybe, maybe U15, but the time in between, it absolutely plays into their success, how they're feeling about themselves as players, their growth as players, and it may not even be a win-loss statistic. It might be, in some cases, it may not even be trackable. It's really the development, like you said, of where they were and where they're coming from. And then bigger picture, Tom Ward at Shattuck St. Mary said it the best, because they do only have those players for a short period of time when they're in high school and going through that, is we know that, and parents know, and the people in the community and hockey community and employee community know that the kid that's coming out of here is going to be a good, decent person. And they're working so hard at just developing the person and the characteristics of a hardworking person who would, coming out of high school, going into university, is good at time management, is a good communicator, has leadership skills, will work hard at whatever they're doing, and in a sense, Tom and the group at Shattuck take as much pride of creating a really, really good doctor, teacher, engineer, whatever, than they would an NHL first round pick, because end of the day, we all know the numbers and we can go at them at nauseum. A lot of these kids, if not in some of these age groups, none of these kids are going to play professional hockey. They're not going to be in the NHL. They might play, in North America in the ECHL, or they might play some junior, and that's kind of that. What have they learned, or what are their takeaways from the time that they were at Shattuck St. Mary's? They now know how to do this, this, and this. When they go to college, they're ahead of their class because they're able to organize their day, plan out their homework structure, volunteer for different things. And then that helps them with internships and all of that stuff outside of school, and just pushes them through. Scott May, who's the general manager at the Okanagan Hockey Academy, said hockey's the vehicle that they drive to create these good citizens in the communities that they come from. There's different groups that can do different ways and teach different ideas behind how to be a good person, but they use hockey in instilling some of those values that me at 41, or somebody just coming out of college at 22, 23, 24 can find valuable and use in their everyday life.
But guys, isn't it funny? Like, and I get this. We're talking about, the goal is to develop good people. And I believe that is sincere with all these organizations. But isn't it funny that the organizations that don't just speak these values, that they live them every day, they're the ones with all the banners hanging in the rafters. Mm-hmm. Like, and that was one of my biggest takeaways.
It's not a coincidence, right, Aaron?
Yeah, it's not. And at the end of the day, like, and I know we've had conversations with, people in these groups, and, my takeaway is, like, at the end of the day, the team with the most talent is going to win. So they just focus on developing the most talent. Like, they understand it's a runway. And it starts at those. And even I think in Shattuck's is another example. I think they get that too, that, they just develop the best individual players and trust that when they put them on the ice in a competitive environment, their skills, their instincts, all the things that are free are going to take over. And more often than not, they're going to be the team raising the trophy at the end of the year. And it's probably because of what they don't focus on. They don't focus on the systems as much. They don't focus on the video. Like, they just focus on, can a kid make and receive a pass at a really high pace, and they understand how hard that is, and that how much many reps and not the days or months, the years it takes to develop that, and they're willing to give those kids the runway to develop those high-end skills.
Yeah, one of the neatest things about Shaddix is that it separates itself from the other articles that we've done through Hockey Factories. Is that program is really getting the best of the best of the best around the world now. They're not even just in Minnesota or in the United States or in North America. They're getting players in the world. So they're bringing in kids who have only ever been the best player on their team, in their loop, in their province, in their country, state, whatever you want to look at. So that's one of the first things that they teach these kids that are coming through or start developing through these kids is, you're coming in here and you're going to be on the third line, and we need you to go up against the other team's best center, and your job is to shut them down. Well, these kids have not ever done that before. They're normally the top center that needs to be shut down, right? So they learn that. Everybody plays the power play. Everybody plays penalty kill. As the season goes on, they'll start developing those particular units and work with those units a little bit more. But some days you're going to be the top D-man is paired with the sixth or the worst D-man. Some kids playing on the first line, left wing, then they're playing on the fourth line, and they're learning all of these different roles all the time, because just adding those to the toolbox when you get out of Shattuck St. Mary's, and it's NHL draft time, and you're lucky enough to get picked, and you're going through those systems, whether you're going to play a junior level or go into a minor program or something like that. You're not going to come, or I shouldn't say not, very, very few come out of Shattuck St. Mary's scoring 40 goals a year and go to whatever league they're going to score 40 goals a year. They learn how to play so many different ways of the game that when they get there, and this isn't just a hockey thing, it's a person and an individual thing, like we said, they're able to move around the lineup. They're able to play different systems, different types of roles. They can kill penalties. They can win face-offs. All of these different things, because to make it in hockey, maybe one day all their job is to be a lockdown left winger that kills penalties, that is on an energy line that shuts down somebody. And name how many NHL players we could name right now that scored 40 goals in junior and play on the fourth line and play 9-10 minutes a night sometimes and work their ass off, and that is turned into a 10 to 13 year NHL career. So it's really getting and developing that mindset of being able to play in all of those roles, and kind of going back to like you had said, Aaron, with the talent portion of things. I mean, you develop 4 lines of kids that can move up and down the lineup or play different roles or anything like that. I mean, find me a team that can do that outside of what some of these factories are doing, and I'd be hard pressed to believe you.
Well, one of my favorite stories was Tom Ward, and I believe he was sharing a story from Don Granato, now the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres, but at the time was the U18 head coach for the U.S. National Development Program. Right. And a talk that he gave to his players and said, okay, you guys are all like hot shots, but let's say you're drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks. Whose spot are you going to take? Are you going to take Jonathan Toews' spot? You can take Patrick Kane's spot. You can take Marcel Hossa's spot. You take Duncan Keith's spot. Like, you're probably going to have to develop the skills here, because the spots that you might be fortunate enough to get a crack at are the ones on the third and fourth line. Mm-hmm. And just trying to speak that, that the importance of like developing well-rounded players and developing that whole suite of skills. And I keep going back to this, dealing with minor hockey coaches. It's like, if you have 2 practices a week, if you have 120 minutes a week of practice, and you realistically think that you're going to teach math, science, history, algebra, P, if you're going to teach all those things in 2 hours a week, you're kidding yourself. You got to pick like 1, maybe 2 things as a goalpost for the end of the year and be great at that. And just, but make sure as an organization, the next coach, they're really clear on the 1 to 2 things that they're going to teach. But make sure when it's all said and done, when those players go through that whole process, whatever that curriculum is, and I don't think there's a right or wrong there. I think the whole right part is you just have to have a plan. If you got a plan and everybody's on board, it's probably going to work out. And I guess with that being said, and I know we got to wrap up here pretty quick, but what was the communication like internally with those organizations? And Ian touched on the importance of communication, but what did that look like within these organizations? Like, was it a summer retreat? Was it a everybody going out for a hamburger once a month? Like, what did that look like to make sure that everybody stayed on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, the one benefit that they do have in some of these clubs is having a director of coaching that is able to go out on the ice and sometimes just watch, and sometimes they take over and coach for a bit and are able to have that communication. So the one thing that they pride themselves in each and every one of these clubs that we work with is that communication focal point. So it might just be a one-on-one meeting. It might be hey, they're walking through the hallway, pull them through. Hey, take a look at this clip or see this. And then it's also bi-weekly meetings or monthly meetings with everybody. And it's, like we kind of said at the top here, and what works for you this month, what didn't work for you this month, who are you having problems with, what are you having problems getting players to buy in on, and just throwing that kind of around in a round table format. So the communication that they have is very, very open, and it's linear in a sense that most of any, or if any changes are to take place, everybody is on the same page before it gets rolled out. So they might do monthly meetings. They might go out in the summer and do those kind of retreats and do those team bonding kind of things to bring everybody closer. But end of the day, everybody that walks in the door has the respect of the logo that they're wearing on their jacket to know that it's bigger than them, and that they're going to have the opportunity to share their thoughts of what works for them, what doesn't. Hey, maybe we try this, maybe we try that. And that comes from the vulnerability and the continuity really of these clubs of having these coaches that have been there for an extended period of time. But that depends on even the higher ups and making it an open, comfortable space where people can bring ideas or bring critiques and work through those. So, I mean, schedule wise, realistically, most of the coaches that would have monthly coaches meetings in front of everybody, U9 to U20, and then there's always checkpoints. There's just constant checkpoints. I know one of the guys at John Alder Mannheim literally takes notes of who he talked to and when, who he talked to and when, who he talked to and when. Oh, I haven't talked to this coach in a week or in 7 days or 9 days or whatever it is. Make sure that they find them coming off the ice, quick touch point, and off they go. So it's just constant. Everybody knows where everybody's moving all the time.
So Matt, you and we've had lots of conversations about hockey factories. Ian, you and I have had lots of conversations about hockey factories. Matt, I haven't asked you this before. I'm going to put you on the spot as we close here. So we make you
right. This is a good question.
The czar of hockey. Yep. You're in charge.
Yep.
Okay. Based on your experience of having all these conversations and tapping into all this knowledge, what are the somewhere between like 1 and 3 overriding principles that every minor hockey organization is going to have to get on board with, based on your experience?
Sure, that's a great question. I'll think about it as I answer the first one, because the first one's obvious. It's communication. That has to be in place, and that has to be not just almost as if in the triangle, in the sense of it comes from the very top. It comes from me of this is how we communicate. This is the verbiage that we use. We're going to be supporting them with positive reinforcement. We're not going to be critiquing on the bench. We'll save it for afterwards. This is how we're going to explain this drill. This is how we're going to explain this and that. And it comes down to the coaches. That comes down to the players. That comes out to the parents, and is part of that structure as well, kind of filtering down. So, I mean, the communication and everybody being on the same page is paramount to really any of this working. And it's very easy to have one arm of the triangle or one angle of the triangle fall. The whole thing falls down, right? So if somebody is coming outside of that, or there's mixed messages, players are getting the wrong ideas, it very easily can come and hit that point. I think from a coaching standpoint or philosophy standpoint, one of the other big takeaways that we have to really assess or really define is, like we kind of talked about, what success is. Is that to your club? And I mean, to your club, and to be fair, I mean, if you need, or if you want to have all the banners on the wall, then we have to go about this a certain way. If you want to be the best club where you have kids that go through your program that go on to doing great things, hockey or not, come back as coaches, come back as sponsors, investing back into the club, putting their kid back into the same club and going through, that definition of success, again, I think can vary amongst any number of coaches in a system, no matter how big the system is. If the U15 coach is worried about winning because, like you had kind of alluded to earlier, Aaron, winning is what looks good on his resume, or that's how he evaluates himself, and maybe the U18 job opens up because I've been winning so much, I might get a chance at that. The whole thing's going to fall down. I mean, that kind of comes from, again, within. So the communication is a big part of it. The definition of success and what that looks like, and making sure that everybody is clear on that, all the way top to bottom. Again, parents, executives, the man at the top, the coaches, the players, everybody understands that. Those are two of the big takeaways for me. The other part of it too is simply and this is more, I guess, player focused, and not necessarily even in the development side of things, is instilling or reinventing the love of the game. Because some of these kids, by the time they're done, we talk about practice and you get them for 2 hours a day. It's so different now. These kids have skating coaches and shooting coaches, and they're passing through cones and they're working with this guy and this guy. And by 13, 14 years old, some of these kids are just tired of it. They love hockey. They watch it with their buddies every night. They whatever they're doing with it, they play it outside with their friends and stuff. But they're tired of it. They're tired of going to the rink. The rink has now become like school, or like going to a relative's house you don't like going to, or kind of places like that. To make sure to reinforce how you're teaching the underlying idea of love of the game, and this is what our takeaways, this is what our lessons are from today, whether it's a win or a loss. This is our takeaway from it. We're better for it. And you're not just wearing these kids out to the point that at 14, they're dealing with burnout factors, good players or bad players. Parents are wondering what's going on. We've put this much money into you playing hockey already, and you're 14 years old and you're saying that you're done. Like, that to me is not on the player. That doesn't come from the player. That doesn't come from the parent for the most part. There's an outside influence that is making that decision for them. And who, like Ian said at the beginning, has the most impact in that way of thinking? That's the coaches. So that to me, really, those three, instilling the love of the game, the communication, and defining what success is going to look like for you in your program, and having that built out all the way through from top to bottom to include everybody. Not necessarily take everyone's opinion or change because this person disagrees or this person doesn't, but having those together, making sure there's no question on where we all sit on that, and moving forward with that, I think is a great start, at least.
Yeah. Aaron, can I jump in? One, you stole my question, which I love, because we were both thinking the same thing. So
Sadine's out here.
Exactly. So, but what I love about your answer, Matt, is, you don't have to be at a high school academy to achieve those three items you just listed. You don't have to be at a professional European club. Those three things can be implemented anywhere, and that's the beauty, that like the ability to duplicate that or replicate that. That's gold. I think what you've just laid out is it, and it's the other part is it can be implemented immediately. Like, like, this is not, you don't have to spend $1 million on a system either. Like,
it's great at what is free.
Right.
Yeah. I honestly have that underlined in my book here. I'm like, that should be on the wall of every Like, be great at what is free.
Yep.
But those three
and
buckets,
it just comes down to the person, right?
Yeah. But these 3 buckets you just gave us again, so there we can apply them. We can apply them now, and they can be across the board at an association, a minor hockey association where we don't have the junior and pro affiliation, where it's not high-end high school academy. Like, it's awesome, man. You hit it.
I really do hope one of the things that's come out of these articles and or that people take, or hopefully I've been able to stress is like you said, Ian. I mean, that's very flattering to hear you say, because that's what I hope it shows in, like, this can be done anywhere. This is, this does not take, I just have to launch a Swedish hockey league program and hire some of the best coaches in the world, and now we've got it. I mean, this is something that you could go as a coach, as an executive in a minor hockey association in a program, and say, this is where we're starting. It'll all go in different directions,
right?
But this is where we're going to start. I think, or I hope, again, from those articles, the takeaway is that this is not just an exclusive club that can do these types of things. This is something that anyone can do. They just do it so well and have done it for so long that now we see, looking back at some of these clubs in the 50-year history that they have of the success they've had, nothing they're doing is really something we can't do anywhere else.
Awesome. So, fellas, I anticipate there's going to be a lot of questions. Like, people are going to want to know more info. So, with that being said, Matt, how can people track you down? I know whether on social or...
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, on Twitter, it's at Matt Dumochelle. Dumouchelle is the last name spelt. You can thank my parents for that. Instagram is Matt_Dumochelle. Bunch of pictures of my cute kids on there if you want to see those. Yeah. Nice. But I mean, truly, I'm on LinkedIn as well. You can reach out to Ian or Aaron for the email address, anything like that. No problem. This has been, I say this when I have a chance, or to every chance I have to, and especially with Aaron around, this has really been one of the greatest gifts that I've been given, the opportunity to have these interviews, or to do these interviews and write these articles. I tell everybody, I've never played a game of organized hockey in my life. I loved hockey, and I started getting into the sport much later on, when the line has already been drawn in the sand. Like I said, there's many 5-year-old kids in my kids' league that are better skaters than me, and better than I will ever be. And this is such a gift to be able to share these stories and kind of put these out and kind of go behind the curtain and see what these clubs are doing. I could talk about this for hours, because it's been, like I said, one of the great gifts that I've been given, and I really do hope that people take a lot out of it, or get something out of it that they can use to make the game better than it was yesterday.
So Aaron, before you wrap up, so Aaron and I, being the Sedins here, I'm hoping Moto is in your future wheelhouse too.
I don't know how they couldn't be.
Perfect. Good. Yeah, good answer.
Good answer. No, we're gonna hit everybody.
Good.
And just for everybody listening, we'll put a link to that you can click on to go download the entire ebook of season 1, so you can get all the articles. Or you can just simply search Hockey Factory's coaches site. Any combination of those will help you land on it. But again, hope that's valuable. And we always enjoy these conversations. And Matt, thanks again for joining us and all the great work you're doing.
Thanks again for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun.